All right, in this presentation, we're going to look at f-strings. Now, this is going to be a better way to have formatted print statements, and here's the reason why. So, with utilizing f-strings with print, this was actually introduced in Python 3.6, and most often we end up utilizing the latest version. I think at the latest version at the time of recording here is going to be 3.12 or 3.10. So, formatted string literals, a concise and convenient way to format the output. So, what happens here is we have embedded expressions inside string literals. Now, right now that doesn't mean anything to you until we get an example. So, the print statements are now going to be prefixed with a uppercase or lowercase f right after the first paren. So for example, printf and then whatever your print statement is going to be, and then we have our closing component there. The other little change here is the variables or the expressions that we're utilizing are going to be inside these curly braces. So let's take a look of what happens here. So this is our old example where we have name and this name over here that's referring to that string, and then we have age. You notice that we had to put commas here, so, and then basically additional quotes. So there's a lot of, I'd say, redundant or unneeded typing, and clearly we get this output. Now with f strings, this is actually pretty cool. What we're doing is we're getting the same result, but the syntax behind it is going to be slightly different. So if you remember, we end up utilizing the keyword f here. Now we start out with our string. Here is our variable name. Now you notice that variable name is in the curly braces to identify this, which is identifying that particular value. And we don't have basically the redundancy of additional quotes here, comma, quotes, quotes, comma, and getting things mixed up. So we basically have a starting quote, ending quote. That's pretty much it. And then any kind of variables, we just basically make sure that these are going to be in the curly brackets. And you notice that we have the same output. All right, so once again, we have our code, and we have things that are identified in terms of our print statement, starting with the f string. Now when we run it, let's take a look to see what the output's going to be. And you notice the output is exactly what it's supposed to be. Let's add another line here, and we're going to basically calculate and display the future age. And let's look at the syntax associated with this. So now we're starting out the same way. In the future years of name will be basically, and we're able to do calculations in here too. So you notice that we have age, which is basically an integer value. We're adding a value of 5, and then we're continuing on with our statement. So let's take a look to see what happens when we run our code. So when we run it, so now we have two lines. We have our initial line, and then now we have this: in 5 years, Alice will be 30 years old. And again, this is basically how the syntax looks here. So we're just utilizing the integer value here, adding a value of 5. So you can see now the power of utilizing variables, print statements, especially print statements with f strings. Now another concept I want to get into to make our output a little bit more visually appealing here is fancy separator strings, doing repetition things, and this is going to be actually very cool and easy. So we could utilize it to, again, to have some creative visual elements here. So I do a print statement, I have my string value, and then I'm utilizing a multiplication value of 25. So what that does is print out 25 of these particular equal signs. So if we go back to our code, we could simply put a divider over here, say print I want to do the equals times 25, and maybe let's put a little comment here. Print. So this would be our spacer. Let me come over here. We'll clear the code, and then we'll run it. So you can see now, without typing a whole bunch of additional characters, we're being effective, and we're just basically did something very simple as that. And that's basically utilizing a multiplying value of something like that. Pretty easy. So you can see that, you know, creativity comes with coding and programming, both in terms of the style of programming and coding techniques, as well as what your output's going to be.